Uruguay. How did a country of 3 million become football's first superpower? In 1930, most of Europe refused to travel to Uruguay. The boat journey took 2 weeks each way. England didn't even bother entering. So when Uruguay lifted the first ever World Cup trophy, beating Argentina 4-2 in Montevideo, most of the world shrugged. They hadn't been watching. But 20 years later, the world was watching. Brazil hosted the 1950 tournament and built the Maracanã to stage their coronation. An estimated crowd of around 200,000 packed inside. The largest crowd ever to attend a football match. Brazil needed only a draw against Uruguay to win the tournament. Uruguay won 2-1. The silence that followed was described by witnesses as something physical. Alcides Giglia, who scored the winning goal, later said, "Only 3 people have ever silenced the Maracanã: the Pope, Frank Sinatra, and me." In the years that followed, Brazil held a national competition to redesign their kit. They replaced white with yellow. The memory of that afternoon was too painful to wear anymore. A country of 3 million people, 2 World Cups, and the most haunting victory in football history. Italy. How did a suspended striker return to win the World Cup? Italy won back-to-back World Cups in 1934 and 1938. Only one other team in history has ever done that. But their most remarkable title came 44 years later. Italy entered the 1982 World Cup having drawn all 3 group stage matches. The press back home were calling for the manager to resign. Their striker Paolo Rossi had just served a 2-year ban for alleged involvement in a match-fixing scandal. He had barely played competitive football in months. In the quarterfinal against Brazil, Rossi scored a hat-trick. In the semifinal, he scored twice. In the final, he scored again. 6 goals in 3 knockout matches. From a player most people assumed was finished. Their 2006 title in Berlin came after Zinedine Zidane headbutted Marco Materazzi in extra time of the final and was sent off. The greatest player in the world, dismissed in the last match of his career. Italy won on penalties. 4 World Cups. Each one earned in circumstances nobody saw coming. West Germany and Germany. How did a team that lost 8-3 win the World Cup weeks later? In the 1954 group stage, Hungary beat West Germany 8-3. Hungary had not lost a single match in 4 years. They were considered the finest team on earth. West Germany met them again in the final. Hungary scored twice in the opening 8 minutes. West Germany scored 3. The miracle of Bern was so significant to a nation still rebuilding after the war that a film was made about it 50 years later. Football had given Germany something it desperately needed, a reason to feel proud again. They won again in 1974 on home soil, in 1990 as a reunifying nation, and in 2014 in Brazil. That 2014 victory came after the 7-1 semi-final against the hosts, 5 goals in 18 minutes. In Brazil, in front of Brazil, the final 3 days later felt like an afterthought. Germany had already written their story. Brazil. How did one nation become football itself? In 2002, Ronaldo scored twice in the World Cup final against Germany. 6 goals in the tournament. A golden finish. But 4 years earlier, he had stood on a pitch in Paris, looking like a man who didn't know where he was. Hours before the 1998 final, Ronaldo suffered what was described as a convulsive fit. He played anyway. France won 3-0. That contrast, collapse then redemption, is the Brazil story in miniature. Their 1958 squad contained a 17-year-old nobody outside South America had heard of. Pelé scored a hat-trick in the semi-final and twice in the final. When Brazil won, he wept on the pitch and had to be held upright by a teammate. They won again in 1962, in 1970 with what many consider the greatest team ever assembled, and then waited 24 years for the 4th. The 1994 final against Italy ended goalless after extra time. Roberto Baggio, Italy's greatest player, stepped up for the decisive penalty. He struck it over the crossbar. 5 World Cups, 5 stories, none of them simple. England. How can one controversial goal define 60 years of history? England have won the World Cup once. In 1966, at home, the final against West Germany went to extra time. Jeff Hurst struck a shot that hit the crossbar and bounced near the line. The linesman, a Soviet official named Tofik Bakramov, gave it. The goal stood. Hurst became the only player in history to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final. Bobby Moore lifted the trophy at Wembley. But here is what makes England's story unlike any other nation on this list. Every other champion went on to win again, or came close enough to believe the next time might be different. England have not reached a World Cup final since that afternoon. One goal, one afternoon, one trophy. 60 years of trying to find their way back. Argentina. How did two different icons win the same trophy 36 years apart? In December 2022, Lionel Messi lifted the World Cup trophy in Qatar. He was 35 years old. He had waited his entire career for that moment. And the story of why it took so long begins 36 years earlier. The 1986 title belongs entirely to Diego Maradona. He scored the hand of God. He scored the goal of the century, both in the same match, against England, 4 minutes apart. Then came decades of Argentina trying to find someone who could do what Maradona had done. Messi appeared. He reached 4 World Cups. He won none of them. People began to say it would never happen. The Qatar final against France ended 3-3 after extra time, the most dramatic final in the tournament's history. Penalties. Messi scored his. Argentina won. Something that had been unfinished for 36 years was finally resolved. France. How did one country build two completely different World Cup dynasties? In 1998, France hosted the World Cup, and nobody could touch them. Zinedine Zidane scored twice in the final. France beat Brazil 3-0. Then they went to the 2002 tournament as defending champions, and went out in the group stage without scoring a single goal. 16 years passed. An entirely new generation emerged. Kylian Mbappé was 19 years old. France beat Croatia 4-2 in the 2018 final in Moscow. 2 titles. 2 completely different squads. 2 completely different styles. Separated by 20 years. France built 2 World Cup winning generations 2 decades apart. Very few nations in the tournament's history have managed anything like it. Spain. Why did the greatest generation in their history win the World Cup only once? For a decade, Spain were the most complete team on earth. Xavi, Iniesta, David Silva, Sergio Busquets. A passing system so suffocating that opponents sometimes went entire halves without touching the ball. They won Euro 2008. They won the World Cup in 2010. They won Euro 2012. 3 consecutive major international titles, something no nation had ever achieved. The 2010 final went to extra time against the Netherlands. Andres Iniesta received the ball in the box. He struck it. He ripped his shirt off and ran. An entire country that had waited a generation erupted. But within 4 years, the system had broken. No team has dominated international football so completely in such a short window. And no team has fallen from that height quite so quickly. 1 World Cup title. In the middle of the greatest sustained run of success the sport has ever produced.